Indian stock market don't move in line. They have about a 40% correlation, in fact, a 40% negative correlation. So if the American stock market moves up, it's likely the Indian stock market might not move up, and likewise the other way. The second reason is the American economy is going to be the strongest. It has been the strongest. It is likely to be the strongest over this decade, especially in sectors like tech, especially in sectors like pharma. And this is where those mutual funds invest in. Third, you have to realize a big gain comes from currency. So, for instance, the asset is you are investing is in dollars, not in rupees. So, just to give you a flavor, in 2009, when some of you were very, very young, the dollar was 40 rupees. $1 was 40 rupees. Today, $1 is 75 rupees. And in the long term, $1 is going to become 100 rupees. That's the expectation. So, there's a lot of money to be made with the American stock markets. Over the last 5 years, about 12 to 14% has been the typical return from the American stock market. There is medium risk, but highly recommended if you want to enter the share market. There are other mutual fund categories. There's something called mid cap. I spoke about large cap earlier. So large cap is if you take in descending order of companies, the top 30, top 50 companies. Mid cap will be between say 51st company to 250th company, and small cap will be less than 250 companies. So these are highly volatile. These are companies which can potentially give you a lot of return, but there are always issues with respect to are their numbers fine, is the governance fine, and when the markets go down, these companies take a hammering. So the returns have been variable. I mean, small cap and mid cap have been highly variable in the last 2 3 years. Very high risk. Unless you really want to burn your hands, you should strongly stay away from it. So these are mutual funds. I spoke of large cap, I spoke of mid cap, small cap, and the American stock market. The other thing is equity. Equity instruments, meaning you want to buy one share of Infosys, you want to buy one share of Unilever. So how do you do it? So if you see, some of you might be reading the newspapers during the pandemic after the lockdown in April, the number of demat accounts. If you want to start trading in shares, you need a demat account. Demat means dematerialized, which basically means the paper is not in physical form. All the shares are in electronic form, and hence the word dematerialized. And it's very easy to open a demat account. You just need to go to a bank, and they'll open a demat account, and you can start trading with a certain amount of money. So the number of demat accounts shot up from 1 crore to 5 crore. So a lot of people are investing money in the market. Now, some people make a lot of money. If you got RI, if you bought Reliance at the right time, if you got Unilever at the right time, if some of you might be reading Burger King, the IPO news was there. If you bought some of these at the right time, you would have got a lot of money. My personal experience is unless you have the expertise and the time and the willingness to invest, you will often end up losing money. So unless you have the time and the inclination, you should stay away from it. So this is in terms of debt and equity, and I'm moving to the next set of asset classes. Something about gold. I'm going to again read from left to right. So gold is something you will realize India has an obsession with. I think India is the biggest consumer of gold. Now, over this year, gold has you had a huge rally. It's gone up by 30-35%, because the way gold typically behaves is when there is a crisis in any economy. When there is a crisis, people move away money from equity, the share markets, and they put it in a safer asset. Gold is considered a safe haven, and people just put money into that. And because of the pandemic, the markets are crashing. All the money has transferred to gold. So, and also there are psychological reasons in a country like India. Gold is associated with safety. Gold biscuits are seen as if something everything goes wrong, you can just run away with gold biscuits because of uh, girls' marriages. People save up on gold because it is necessary for their marriages. So gold is more than just a return asset. It's a lot of psychological value that is associated. So how do you invest in gold? One, you can actually buy gold. So you can go to a Satanish showroom, you can buy gold. But that's a very bad idea because they will typically charge you 15 to 20% wastage to handle that gold. Second, you can buy gold biscuits. You can go and buy it from somewhere. But the issue with gold biscuits is you have to keep it in a safe place in your cupboards, in your almiras, and there's always a risk, or lockers, that it might get stolen. Third is you can buy gold funds. There are like gold mutual funds which are available. There's a gold fund which is given by the government of India. It's like paperless again. You can go online and buy it. Should you have gold? The answer is it's a very good diversification vehicle. Typically, people advise that you should have 5% of your portfolio in gold. So, in a way, it's sort of moderately relevant for you when you start earning. Next thing is insurance, and to explain the concept of insurance is that there is a chance that some event might happen, a probability. So, for instance, I might go to an insurance company and say that over the next 30 years, I will pay you a small amount at the end of each year, say 200 rupees or 300 rupees every year. In case I die in those 30 years, you will give me a lump sum, which is a much bigger multiple of the amount I pay you in case that event happens and I lose my life. So that is nothing but life insurance. Now, how does an insurance company manage to do it? Because I might only say pay a premium of 1,000 rupees, but they might be able to give me a life insurance cover of 50 lakhs. How does it work? There's something called the law of, you might have studied this, the law of large numbers. They play on probability that if you insure like 1 lakh people, the chance of death is actually with a very few. Hence, they try and manage that. So there are different types of insurance. One is health insurance. All of you will know, your parents might have it. There's basically medical insurance in case they have any treatments, and the insurance company will cover it. Life insurance is exactly what I just said. So there is, I'll keep paying a premium or I'll pay a one-time premium if something happens to me. They give a lump sum back. Term insurance is nothing but life insurance for a particular term of years, could be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So this is in terms of insurance. There are certain insurance products that also give you a return. So the premium you're paying them, that premium can also grow and they can give you a return. Typically gives you a, so the insurance company will invest that money in the stock market, and if they make a return out of it, they'll pass it on to you. Typically has been about 6 to 8%. Now it's obviously a little higher because the markets are higher. So the question is, should you have insurance? And the way you should look at it is, all of you will join corporates, and the company will give you very good insurance. So you per se don't need medical insurance for yourself. However, you should ensure that your parents, your grandparents, they definitely all have insurance. Any person above 40, 45 should definitely have medical insurance. On life insurance, do you need life insurance? The way you have to look at it is, are you going to be the primary breadwinner in the family, or are you going to be the secondary or the tertiary breadwinner? So if the family in course of time is going to be dependent on your income, there's no other income in the family, then you need to take a life insurance or a term insurance. If you are not the primary breadwinner, say your father is still active in his job, or your brother, cousin, etc., you are not the primary, then you might want to really consider if you need a life insurance per se. Now I'll move to real estate. So I covered gold, I covered insurance. Now I'll come to real estate. There are two types of real estate. One is commercial real estate. This is nothing but investing in the offices. So it could be the various IT parks, Nesco, what you have in Goregaon, or the Godrej Park in Bikhroli, some of those, or it could be just all the warehouses in Bhiwandi, or it could be the various warehouses of Amazon. So that is commercial real estate, BPO office, regular offices, warehouses. So typically, can you invest in such an instrument? The answer is no, you can't directly. There are certain companies who have listed their investments in the stock market. So that's something called an REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust. So there's something called Embassy National Park. Embassy has runs these corporate offices largely in Bangalore, and they are listed on the stock market. So you can buy a share of that, and that's how you invest in commercial real estate. So in terms of an asset class, if you see the last 5 years, commercial real estate has performed really well because the demand for office space has gone up. E-commerce has seen a boom. A lot of place for BPOs, warehouses are required. But going forward, it's a big question mark. So while people are saying e-commerce might boom further, and people might come back to offices, but do people really need so many square feet? And hence the future is a little tricky with real estate. And hence, like I said, you might want to avoid this for now. The second thing is in real estate is residential real estate. This is, for example, where you stay in your flats in Mumbai. And how does a residential real estate asset class work? So there's something you have to understand with the real estate is something called yield, and that's how you evaluate a real estate. So for instance, if you buy a flat in Andheri East today, and that flat will probably cost you, for the purpose of discussion, say 3 crores. That's what the flat will cost you, 3 crores. And say there's something called as rental yield. If you put that asset to use, how much will you make? So if you give that 3 crore Andheri East flat to uh, say a family, how much rent will they pay? Say it is 50,000. Unfurnished flat Andheri East might go for 50,000. So that is 6 lakhs a year, 50,000 into 12. So 6 lakhs divided by 3 crores. That is 2% rental yield. Now, that's how you calculate rental yield. The now thing you have to say is your asset covering inflation? So inflation in India is about 4 to 5%. Inflation means the rate at which food, utilities, etc., oil, the price is going up. So inflation in India is 4 to 5%. Real estate yield in Bombay is giving you 2%. So in a way, your asset is losing money. Now people argue that the flat on its own is actually increasing its rate. The flat where you are staying increases its rate. But with residential real estate, it's not so simple. One, because there's so much money you have to take as loan. All that money gets blocked. Secondly, if your flat is more than 10 years, no matter where you stay, Bandra West or APNC Road, it might not be so easy to sell it. Hence, when it comes to residential real estate, the answer always is unless you're buying it for your own self, meaning you want an condo of your own, as an investment asset class, this is actually a very, very poor asset class. Now, people will tell you in the past, pockets like Badala have shot up, pockets like Panvel have shot up. Those days are gone. Those days of Noida, Whitefield in Bangalore, those days are gone. You will really not find those pockets anymore. So, unless you want to buy a house for yourself, a flat for yourself, or a flat for your family members in a tier 2 city, some of you come from, say, Jaipur, Indore, or Ahmedabad, it's actually a very bad idea to invest in residential real estate. The next asset class I will go to is something called emergency fund. As a lot of you will come into the job market, you will realize, especially with this decade, that earnings or your job is not reliable. You might be, I don't want to scare you, but this is ground reality, that you might be laid off the coming Monday. Now, when this happens, and it will happen to everybody, it has happened to all of us, it will happen to all of you, you need a short term 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So some of you will be staying in Bombay, the living expense is higher, you might need 20 to 30,000 a month living expense, so which is about 1.5 to 2 lakhs, parked away in a place, could be a bank FD, which is like an emergency fund, which will see you through 3 to 6 months of expenses. Then I'm moving to Bitcoins. And some of you, if you're following the news, Bitcoins is going through the rally of its life. Now it's currently, I think, at $28,000. It's a 20 lakh a Bitcoin. Now, with Bitcoins, you will also hear this story that, at least I was told this story in 2013 or 2012. There's some person who invested 1 lakh rupees in Bitcoin, and today he has a house in Mud Island. Now, I can tell you all these stories are rubbish. I've not heard anybody who's made money. And ideally, you should stay off Bitcoins. It's sort of getting recognized. It's not fully recognized. There is limited visibility, no control of the government. Nobody really knows how the asset class works. It's the ultimate form of gambling. So it's a high risk asset class. You should stay away from it. The other thing you should stay away from it, and this is a term coined by Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, one of the best fund managers the world has ever seen, is derivatives. So they call them at weapons of mass financial destruction. Derivative meaning you have an asset class, say an asset class could be anything, a share, debt, and you build an instrument on top of that, betting on the price of that asset class. That's why it's called a derivative. So if this asset class goes up 5%, I will pay you so much. If this asset class goes down 3%, you pay me so much. So these are high risk models, and there's a lot of loan money that is involved, and hence you should stay away from it. So these are the various instruments you can invest in. There are more actually. You can invest in currency instruments. So some of you might just like to put up on dollars. So you might want to say buy $2,000 and just keep it, because the dollar anyway will appreciate over a period of time. There are limits to that. You can do it. I don't think you can hold currency more than 3-4 lakh rupees. So there's a limit to how much you can invest in the currency markets on your own. So this is the second question in terms of where you can invest money in. The third, I think, is very critical. What are the mistakes people make? And I have made almost every mistake. I can tell you, almost every friend of mine has made all of these mistakes. And it's very important that you understand so that you don't make these mistakes. And I've divided into two types, and I'm going to read from left to right. The left hand side is the lifestyle errors, the right hand side is the investing errors. So, one is lifestyle errors. I'm going to start covering that. If you, when you start, all of you enter the job market at 20, 21, you get good jobs, 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 15 lakh, 20 lakh jobs, and you'll have a lot of loose cash. And then you will have these credit card companies who will sell you a dream that why don't you use the credit card, borrow a little more. You will look at the latest iPhone, you will look at the latest Hermes bag, uh, LV jackets, etc. Now, what the credit card company will tell you is why don't you use the credit card? You don't have to pay the whole sum. The interest is only 2% a month. And this is the single biggest financial blunder you can make, because one, 24% interest a year is scary, and the interest amount they will apply is not just on your outstanding. So say if you buy an iPhone and 90,000 is outstanding, they will not apply 24% on 90,000 just, but every transaction in the future they will start applying a penalty till you clear it. The second thing, what also is a very bad negative vicious cycle. This is one of the reasons the American economy sometimes is getting into dire straits, because it's a very bad habit once you start living on borrowed money. So never take that loan, always pay that credit card bill on time. The second thing I spoke about earlier on the previous slide is never assume a job is permanent. It is not going to be. The kind of decade you're going to enter is sorry, just to check, is my voice audible?